today's episode of TIDES, where we explore the cutting-edge innovations shaping the future of business. I'm thrilled to be joined by two remarkable leaders in the field of business transformation and organizational change. Chantal Milloy, co-founder and COO of Levvel, and Courtney Weiss, managing director of organizational change, also at Levvel. Chantal has led countless transformational initiatives guiding organizations through complex changes with a deep focus on reducing people risks and fostering inclusive, people-centered strategies. Courtney brings a wealth of experience in leading large-scale change efforts, blending a balanced and strategic approach to prepare organizations for the future. Today, as AI has become a game changer across industries, we'll be diving into how organizations can prepare for the integration of AI in their workforce and processes. And we'll explore the leadership, cultural, and ethical strategies needed to navigate this emerging landscape. So let's get started. Welcome to TIDES, Chantal and Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right. So my first question is all about AI readiness. And as we know that AI is rapidly emerging as a powerful tool, and many organizations are navigating its potential in different ways. Some organizations have been all in, especially since Gen AI happened, and others are just starting to explore. So from your experience in change and transformation, what strategies or approaches do you think businesses should consider when they are at an early stage of AI exploration? How do you guide clients and internal teams through this early phase of AI integration?
Okay, well, I'll jump right in, Courtney, and we'll banter here, Shweta, but it's a great question. And it's interesting, when I always think of where to start, I realize, what are our executive leaders actually aware of? To me, it's education there. How difficult will it be to start to lead an organization into any path that's related to AI without the education and alignment of that executive team? So that's always where my head goes, is what you don't know what you don't know. And executive leaders don't necessarily even know how AI can or cannot benefit them, the risks to their business. So we really have to start there on an education program in some way, or sorting it out in a very small room with a very small group of people before you want to talk to anybody about how you're going to explore. I don't know, Courtney, what comes to your mind? But
yeah, and what I think about is, where's the anchor? So, yes, there's this new cool thing that can really, really help us out there, but how will it actually support where we're going as an organization, what our strategy is, how does it align, and how can it help us further the things that we're already doing? I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the uptake, is really looking at the things that we already want to do, and how can AI help us get there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And from your perspective, who at the leadership level should be engaged in those conversation at the start of AI exploration? Is it led by the technology team? Is it through people lens? Like, what would you suggest or recommend?
It's a tough one, because I struggle with that a little bit, because I think, change that is this significant has to come from the top, right? But in this case, the top may not be experts, right? They may not be experts in the capabilities and the things like Chantal was talking about. There's an education piece to this somewhere. So, at least the support has to come from the top. And then I think it would be looking for experts or pseudo experts at this point, within the organization that can really help drive the actual change.
Yeah, I agree, Courtney. I think it's subject matter experts, to some degree, that are going to need to be brought into the room, for sure, with the executive leadership team, but it does have to start at the top, and it is that senior leadership team that has to set that tone and set that direction. So I think there's an investigation period. When we think about leading change, in the work that we do, and we've worked with so many companies now, there's a lot of work to be done, as I said, within that executive team, to just get your own house in order and make sure you're all speaking the same language or understand it in a way that's going to benefit the business. So whether it's the vision, the strategy, the priorities and other priorities that exist in the company that you have to sort through and determine what you're going to do next, that's key in decision making. You know, we see most failure happen at decision making and governance on any change. So AI is a massive change, but you could put any change. You could replace the word AI with any change. And if those things don't happen at the senior leadership team, you're not setting yourself up for a strong foundation. So it ultimately must begin. And then to Courtney's point, bring in the SMEs, right? You're not going to know everything. So who, like any change, who do you need to bring to the table that has the expertise that you're looking to learn from in your team or outside your walls?
So true. So let's say we had this education and awareness session, and the right players who will influence this change in the organization have been bought in. And there's consensus that we have to embark on this journey of experimenting with AI. But before embarking on that AI adoption or transformation journey, what foundational, cultural, structural, leadership elements should be in place to ensure seamless transition? How can organizations create a mindset of adaptability, of openness that prepares employees and leaders for the inevitable changes that AI will bring? I mean, where I'm going with this is like, what do we do next? Like, yes, we as an organization have decided we should move forward, but what next?
This is fascinating. And I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about the things that need to change in the way we behave today when it comes to AI in particular. And I can argue some other large changes as well, but AI in particular, because it's going to change the way that people work. We know that. It's going to change jobs and talent development. So I think leaders have to get very serious and in a room about looking at the way that they reward employees and looking at performance in a way that isn't rewarding quantity, but quality. So if you're in an organization today where you're still rewarding on the number of things that got done in a week, or the number of emails that got sent out, or the number of, of productivity, and then you think down the road that AI is going to automate 80% of those things, then the leadership team needs to start now at looking at strategies on we should reward based on outcome. We should be rewarding based on creative ideas. We should be rewarding based on what someone generates that will still be the human need on the other side of AI and not on the quantity. I worry most about that, and leaders should get serious about getting in a room and talking about that now and the reward system.
That is, I don't think I have anything to add to that, honestly. I think that's exactly it, right? It's setting up those structures that will allow for the culture to take this on and versus, like Chantal was saying with the focus on folks doing a specific set of tasks that can potentially be automated. That's going to be what people are afraid of, right? They're going to be afraid of losing their role or losing, their ability to do their job. And I think it's going to be really important to get those structures set up.
Yeah. So both of you talked about this change impacting, performance, which is how we reward and measure performance, which is a big one. And also changes in the nature of work, the roles, the anatomy of how work is structured. Well, I would love for you to contrast between now this change and any other change, digital transformation efforts in the past, and the role of HR in the mix. Like, can business lead this change on their own, or should they be partnering, and how should they be partnering with the rest of the players in the organization?
Yes, great thoughts. And there's no question from an HR perspective that, when you think about our HR departments, people, for those that take on a people and culture tone in organizations, you already know there's a different take on, is it human resources or is it people and culture, and where we're moving people from. Absolute partner. And I think that goes with the member of the senior team that is ultimately the chief people officer or the, call it whatever. I don't think, title is necessarily what matters, but that seat at the table that does have the talent roadmap in mind, the people development in mind, the reward systems in mind, that's pushing for innovation there as well, and educating alongside the other executives to get there. So I do think HR will become like a critical partner, as I would say the CIO and the technology. So representation at that top table needs to be, again, that group aligning and talking about how we then see that we need to take this down into the next level of leadership.
And I think too, I mean, if we think about the HR departments that do have that people and culture lens that are responsible for performance and that are responsible for job descriptions and things like that, they're the integrators. They're the folks that are going to be looking at the capabilities that are, that come out of AI, or the capabilities that are required in the organization, capabilities that people need to be successful in that organization. And so they're going to be, I think, a linchpin as we get deeper into this. I mean, not right at first, but as we get deeper into this transformation as a whole, they're going to be the ones that are really those integrators and pulling in the capabilities to the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, Courtney, you just hit on something there on capabilities. We talk about capabilities a lot in the work we do when we prepare our clients for any change, but more and more, like this has to just come right down to capabilities. We kind of gloss over the skills and but the actual capabilities that will be removed or will change or will morph or hybrid, or think about there'll be jobs where people are managing AI functions, they're your people, really,
Mm-hmm.
You've got a 10-person team and 2 of them are human. I don't know how far we can go here on an org structure, and there's pros and cons to that. We don't want to treat them as human, in my opinion, the AI functions or capabilities, but all new titles that are now supervising machines and people to do the things that they're supposed to do to get the outcomes, and lessening the risk and the security and everything else that might come with that. So the capabilities piece is fascinating unto itself for HR partners.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one because, Chantal, if I'm just zooming into what the point that you made about the future of workforce, we are talking about hybrid and blended in the way of, are we working from home or are we working from office, or a mix of both? But where you're going with that comment is maybe the nature of workforce will be a blend of humans and machines. And we talk about individual capabilities, but what about capabilities of departments? Like, does HR capability as a whole today is ready for managing that kind of blended workforce, which will have humans, machines, robots, autonomous decision-making systems, agents in the mix? So I'd love for you both to opine on that.
Yeah. And wow, we could spend hours probably, like you could dive deeper. We don't have that. But this is where I worry most about, I go back to reward, but also getting the people comfortable early at the type of things we need of them in the future, which is the creative thinking. So what can't my computer do? And look, it's only going to get smarter and smarter and autonomous. But I believe in humans as much as I believe in what AI can replace. And so let's get our people to work in creative ways and generate creative ideas that are game changers for the results of the business. In that means, here's where I think HR departments and senior HR professionals can be thinking about ways that we allow our workforces to work. So am I the most productive 9 to 5 sitting in front of my computer if what I'm going to be measured on in the future is the creative ideas that I generate? What if I generated the one creative idea between 9 and 10 in the morning on the walk that I took that resulted in $6 million of revenue for my company? Reward. And do we care that it was a 40-hour week, or do we care that human contributed 6 hours, which what resulted in so I think like all of that needs to be revisited, and that's a huge contribution for the HR professionals and team to up the game in that way.
Not only that, not only does the conversation need to be revisited, but I think, the world that we're moving to enables that as well, right? It's a bit of a chicken or the egg, but at the same time, we're moving to a world, like you said, where, outcomes are so important versus but in seat time and, all of those things where, and that is enabled by some of these technology advances and things like that. And if you align to the capabilities that we're talking about, I mean, it all works together to build an entirely new system and an entirely new way of working.
In this conversation, we are understanding the magnitude of change that organizations have to experience or are experiencing already. And it's multifaceted. It's not just technology. It has a huge people impact. It changes the way we do our work. It changes how we show up for work, how we get rewarded, and how we collaborate, and many other things. But then at the same time, I don't know if you, in your previous transformation efforts, have sensed this, but I'm sensing that there's a lot of fear associated with this change this time. What are your thoughts on that? And how do organizations get ahead of that? Because there's no adoption happening, in my opinion, if there's fear and if we don't get ahead of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's fear in every change. So, yes, we can compare that this will be on a mass scale, maybe that we're not able to really quantify or get our arms around. But every project that we've been involved in, there are fears and issues and concerns that surface that you would have never thought would have been an issue, a fear, a concern. And so I think for me, the same principle always applies, regardless of what the change is, large or small. Courtney pointed earlier to the anchor. Like you need an anchor. You need a defined, shared definition by a senior leadership team on what it is you are doing, what it is you are changing, what it is you are embarking on. And once that's done, the anchor, the way you talk about it, the way you all agree to go out and discuss it with your then all leadership team and then with your employees, it's about opening up those two-way communication channels to hear those issues and concerns. So it'd be hard to guess that now, in my opinion. Very difficult to guess what those would be because it is going to hit everybody very uniquely, very different for each person, depending on the lens they see the world in, the background that they have, the culture, the working environment, the skills they have and don't have, the family issues that might be going on. So to me, it's more about setting up the system as we would with any change, making sure that feedback loop is there, making sure that leaders know how to listen to that and address that and work away at it, and transparency. So if you're open about that, I know these things, I don't know these things. Just because I'm the senior leader here, it doesn't mean I know everything. We're learning. AI is new to all of us. And a regular cadence of letting people know and take the journey with them, I think is a great start.
And I think it's worth saying too that the fear is completely normal. It's natural. When you think back to big changes, in society in general, like when we learned that the earth revolved around the sun, people were, pushed back pretty hard, right? And so anything that is really going to fundamentally change the way that, we function as humans is going to be met with concern, with fear. And that's totally natural. And it's part of the human condition, right? And I think, allowing for, like Chantal was talking about, a definition of what this means to us in our organization, a definition of what is my role as the leader in helping my people through this, and how do I answer some of those big questions that people have and the fears that people have around this thing. I mean, there's there ethical concerns and all of these things going on out there right now that we'll have to grapple with before we can really have a good handle on what this means for everybody. So I think I just think that fear is so normal and natural, and it needs to be okay.
Yeah. And you think about those feedback loops again in any transformation that we do, right? Once you understand what people's issues, fears, concerns at every level of the organization, yeah, a big part of addressing that is, yes, communication, yes, training, learning, capabilities, new skills, ultimately what's going to be required for the organization tomorrow, what won't be, and how to transition people through it. And yes, inevitably, a portion of the workforce will not make it through that change. Like, I think we'd be silly to think everybody's just going to get reskilled. But I don't think that's maybe on a massive scale, let's see. But any change or transformation we've been involved in, this occurs, right? So the more transparent and early communication with people that you can help your own workforce where they can transition into those new capabilities and skills, the better. It's not going to be perfect. People are not all going to remain with that organization. We'd be silly to think that's a future we're living into.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the role of leadership. I'd like for us to zoom into that for a second, because yes, communication and transparency are definitely key for people understanding what's happening in my organization with AI. How does it impact me? But at the same time, this change, unlike any other in the past, affects all layers of the organizations, every department, every human being in many ways that is part of an organizational ecosystem, including the leaders. So how can leaders lead by example to create more buy-in and diffuse the fear to a certain degree for encouraging adoption?
Yeah. I love this. And Courtney's smiling and we're grinning because it's, every change we do, we get all excited about making sure the leaders are aligned first. And this is not typical. What often happens is leaders, middle leaders, really, you're not talking executive leaders or maybe supervisors, but middle management, shockingly, are learning of things at the same time as their people often. If nothing else, but to ensure that the executive leadership team has a clear plan for their entire leadership group across all levels on how to first allow their leaders to first have their own fears, issues, concerns surface, discussed, dealt with, feel whole, get to a place where you feel confident and your leader feels confident standing in front of their employees and their workforce to then be able to confidently convey what's happening, take and hear the issues and concerns from their people. Everyone's human. So whether you're a leader of people or you're an individual contributor, you have to be okay with it yourself before you're expected to go and be confident in front of a group of people that are looking to you to guide them. So that, to me, we need a lot of work here. And I would start there with leaders.
I think so too. And I'm going to go a little off script with this one, based on what we normally recommend, which is what Chantal was talking about. I think I would add to that, taking on a mindset of curiosity in this particular instance, because I think right now a lot of the fear is coming from, I've never used it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the capabilities are. I don't know what, what's going to spit back at me, whatever, and I think if leaders can take on that mindset of curiosity and doing some of their own stuff and learning about these things and sharing those learnings with their people, I think that could really, really help in this particular instance, because it will allow people to kind of look up and say, okay, I can try things out. It's okay for me to, tinker down here and see what I can learn. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree, Courtney. And the other thing, just when you were saying that it has me think about is the safe sandbox. We've talked about, there are companies today, many, this is new for many, but even to create a safe sandbox for their people, whether it's employees or leaders, to get close to AI. And whether that's, it doesn't mean it's ChatGPT it could be Copilot, it could be whatever containment within your walls you want to get people close and just playing with the basics, because for some it's just the basics, then over time, not so scary, right? Like just what can you expose? Is it an innovation lab where people can, walk in and it's safe to do so and you've allowed your people to do it? But, we're hearing now of companies that are, banning it. No, you can't use it. You can't. Okay, well, make it safe. I get that. Yeah. I get why. That's coming sometimes from an honest place of security risk and privacy and not understanding enough. But do the work there then. Find a way to allow everyone in the walls to play in a way that gets them closer and asking some really good questions. And to Courtney's point, curiosity will come. But you don't know what you don't know. So you've got to start there with exposure.
Yeah. Totally. And I love this idea of leaders also sharing their lived experiences, to your point, Courtney, with the rest of the organization, because there's no playbook for this change in the sense that it's not like typical technology transformation that an organization is going through. So there are no defined use cases. The more leaders share about, in my humble opinion, their successes, yes, but also their failures will help rest of the organization see that it's okay. And if there's a sandbox, the risks are also limited from an experimentation point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And use cases then can come from that, right? So actual use cases that you can show and demonstrate and live a real, as we say sometimes, the personas, live an actual story that is typical for your company customer journey, for example. If the customer's at the heart, how would you show a use case from beginning to end to someone on what AI could actually do in a demonstratable way that makes people safely watch it, explore it, see it, say, I get it. I'm starting to understand how meaningful and impactful this could be for our business. And I think doing that allows someone in whatever role they're in to say, I have an idea. Mm-hmm. I have an idea on where it can help my department, my function, my job. And allow that feedback to come up, allow that, innovation camp or innovation stream to, that would be great. Yeah. So this curiosity, innovation lab, however you get there, it would be important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made another point of organizations opening up to listening effectively to what's bubbling up from at grassroots level so that they can support those initiatives accordingly. Okay, let's pivot to preparing the workforce. How do you see preparing the workforce for what's coming with AI transformation, adoption, adaption this time around than in any other transformation efforts that we've experienced in the past?
Yeah, for me, this one really goes to the way we're working. Yeah, the earlier we can start getting people used to understanding outcome-based and being recognized for outcome-based and rewarded and get creative on allowing people to work in a way that will foster that. That in itself is probably, in my opinion, the larger change in that should maybe also be organized around, governance around a change in behavior. Let's put our arms around that one as the anchor and say, and they're, and more than just the ones I'm thinking of, but what are those 5 or 6 things, and this is maybe, partnership with HR on this, what are those 5 or 6 behavior changes that need to occur in order for all of this to even be possible? Mm-hmm. I'd work that change now, long before, and I could sandbox AI along the way, but long before I do anything meaningful with AI, I'd be working at that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the only thing I would add would be, acting with transparency. Because, AI is one of those things that is, it's going to be usable in the workplace, but also in our, in our personal lives. And so people are hearing things, and some people are scared and some people are worried about security and some people are worried about ethics. And there are all these debates going on right now. And I think the only way that we get through that is acting with transparency. So telling people what we're doing from a cybersecurity perspective to make sure that, the information that needs to stay within our walls stays within our walls. What are we doing to help people along on this journey? And we're keeping people informed along the way. I think that's going to go a long way as well. in terms of readying people for adoption.
Very true. And with these behavior changes you're pointing to, I'm sure those behavior changes lead to skills and core capabilities that businesses should focus on developing in their employees. So, what from top of your mind would be those core skills that every organization should be thinking about investing in today, even if they are at early stages of AI exploration?
It's a great question, and adaptability comes to my mind. I think there's many here we could debate, but adaptability. I love what Courtney said on curiosity. And termed officially, people call it a growth mindset. We hear growth mindset. I'm less jargony. Like I like to. I don't necessarily want to hook on to terms that are out there, but it is what it means. As a growth mindset is someone that's adaptable and able to shift and change and curious and be okay with that. And my job today may not look like my job tomorrow. So what can we do now to train into thinking that way and feeling good about that, about the unpredictable, and helping those, different people will have a harder time with that than others. So what can we do to strengthen the personalities that will be it will be a more difficult journey for them?
Yeah, I think so. Like the one thing that came to mind was flexibility. And I think Chantal, you covered it with yours, is that we can't keep doing things the way that we've done them forever. We need to move forward, and we need to be flexible in what we need to learn to get there.
All right, let's pivot to change management as a practice. As AI begins to influence business transformation, what unique challenges does it pose for traditional change management approaches? How can organizations adapt their change management strategies early on so that they are better prepared for AI integration and ensure smoother transformation or adoption across the workforce? And do they need to? Maybe let's start there.
I find that, this is it. It's fascinating because the principles of leading, managing, measuring, change, transition, adoption, the principles don't change in my mind. I'm not saying nothing, there are things that will change, but the same people are at the end of all of this, and people's fears, which we talked about earlier, and the issues and concerns that people have are so specific to the thing that's in front of them at the time. So whether it's how the job I'm doing is going to change because of AI, or whether it's the job I'm doing is going to change because of a merger acquisition, you name the thing, it's still so uniquely, the unique factor for each person is still very unique. So when I think about in the world that we lead in transformation and the principles of helping people get there, I would articulate it as, communications, training, reward and recognition, and leaders and leadership support. So this is how we do our work, but when I think about those four categories, the same transparency, communication, new skills, new capabilities, roadmaps for the talent workforce, organizational design, organizational efficiency, leaders, how they show up, how they stand up, do they have the information they need? Are they standing in front of me and helping me through that journey? And reward recognition, which we spent a lot of time on, that we actively work on each engagement. Where is that changing the reward system? Where has productivity dipped and you need to commission in a different way? That's still the core for me. But then I also appreciate that I don't know what I don't know. So once you get a little deeper and you start to say, actually, we do have to shift a little bit the way we think about it. From a practitioner's lens and change, well, that gets exciting. I mean, it's already exciting, right? You can automate data. Like it's, if you think about data, we gather issues and concerns. That's our data. And if I can theme and aggregate issues and concerns and make better sense of it quicker to help my customers get to insights that then can be played back, well, that's massive. And that's exciting from a professional landscape of helping organizations through change. And Courtney, we've got an example right now in that, don't we? But anyways, I'm sure Courtney.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, the thing that I'm really jazzed about is the data analysis capabilities, right? I'm from a change management practitioner lens. really, really jazzed about the data. What I worry about, and this is not something that I have any basis for, but what I worry about is taking it too far, because we know that in change we need leadership. We know we need connection with people. We know we need, we need two-way dialogue and communication. What I worry about is us getting so jazzed about these capabilities that we use it for everything and we forget about the human side of change. That's what I worry about. Not something I think that's ever going to be an issue with us, but that's where I get a little worried. And I think it's going to be the marriage of the two that really steps up the capability of the change management practice. Is using the capabilities in the background to get at the data and all of that, but then also being able to spend more time on coaching and relationship building and all of those things. I think that's going to be a massive shift in the way that we do things and the way that we're able to support our clients. And I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk for a second about those organizations that don't have a strong change capability internally in the organization and are at early stages of AI integration or exploration. And they want to leverage data for making some macro decisions. And I'm specifically talking about people data, not operational data. For those organizations, what would you recommend are some of the people data pieces or signals or indicators that they should be collecting, having a robust collection system and sense making system for, so that they can make those informed choices and decisions and focus more on the human aspect of transformation versus data gathering aspect?
Yeah. We know from research, from experience, from everything that we've done over the years, that there are a set of things that make change good. There are a set of things that make change go well. Mm-hmm. And, usually when we're working with clients is we are collecting data against those things to really understand whether those things are going to help or hinder you in your change. And I think that is really where we can take a look at that AI capability is looking at, if we're looking at leadership effectiveness, for example, what are some of the indicators that can tell us, that leadership is being effective in change, and how do we summarize some of those key areas that aren't going so well? And then, it's using the AI capability to get us there, but then, really being able to spend our time working with those leaders and increasing those capabilities and giving them the support that they need, the assets that they need, whatever that is. I think that's really going to be where things shift.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Courtney. It's what we call the critical success factors, and that has to be aligned and agreed upon with, again, back to our executive leadership team. What are we trying to measure against? There needs to be these anchors, right? And then in that, when you know what those are, you are out collecting with that in mind. If you don't know what you're asking, if you don't know what issues and concerns to gather, and then from an automation perspective in the data, it's about theming. You look at, then you theme that data, because to what degree and to what mass scale is this a sentiment or a concern? If it's one person on 500 versus 300 of the 500 or 3 of the 10 departments, well, this is where your tailored solutions will come in, right? On the unique and the different things that the different parts of your workforce and leadership level need. But still across the 10 critical success factors for us, and it might not be 10 for someone, but that's based on the work we do that we've seen. Yeah. So again, the agreed upon anchor and external help when you need it, right? Because if you're not skilled at change as a discipline, organizational change, we do strongly believe you could use some external help for a period of time until you build that internal capability.
So true.
Yeah.
And we can't talk about data without talking about the ethical considerations. So what would you suggest for organizations who are looking at using data for informed decision making, people data for informed decision making, that they should start considering or addressing early on to ensure responsible AI implementation in the future?
Ooh, okay. So I want to tie this back to our conversation around the capabilities and the things that we need to be teaching our people now, because bias, unconscious bias, and awareness around those topics. So if we were looking now to arm a workforce or a group of leaders on the things they don't know, we need heavy work there on bias and unconscious bias and guardrails around ensuring that AI models that are created or developed, or that is taken into consideration on how to ensure that representation of those that do the modeling, as important as the biases and unconscious bias that exists within all humans. There needs to be a serious discussion and guardrails or foundational elements around that conversation. And I am quite worried about that. I do think about that often, and it has to be something we work at.
I don't know if I have anything to add there. To be honest, I'm of the same mindset where, ethical concerns, biases are quite key, and taking those out. I think also where companies will need to be really careful is with, we've talked about security throughout this conversation, and I'm assuming, I'm not technical, so I'm assuming there are ways to protect human data with, while using AI, whether that's, turning names into numbers or, whatever that looks like. But there's got to be a way to protect the human data. But I couldn't tell you what that was.
Yeah. No, this is such a great point that both of you make, because not having an ethical implementation of AI, the frameworks and how we manage bias in place, what I'm hearing is not to slow organizations down. Like at the same time, if you have those safe sandboxes for people to start experimenting with AI while organizations figure out the ethical framework side of things, that can happen together, in tandem versus having one sorted before the other.
Yeah, agreed. And back to that sandbox, as you just said, Shweta, it is so important, isn't it? Like a safe place to do that, and ensuring again that your workforces are varied and diverse across, culture, gender, because then everyone's going to see what they see. And it is those perspectives that have you come to the conclusion that, hang on a second, this is not right? So again, if you don't already have, if you're still working at diversity in your workforce, there you go. There's another thing you should be doing right now, is looking at the structures you have in place to ensure that the barriers continue to be identified, removed, improved, again, from the top down, right back to that executive leadership team, because we know it has to start there. And until we solve it there, it's going to be very difficult to solve it anywhere else.
Well said. All right. So I know I can go on and dive deeper into the topics that we explored today. But as we wrap up for today, what do you both see as crucial next steps for organizations that are still in the early stages of AI transformation to prepare for AI's inevitable impact? How can these companies who are at early stages position themselves so that they're ready to embrace AI, even if they haven't fully explored the potential of AI in their work environment just yet?
Yeah, my closing message would definitely be around the education piece. Education for the executive teams as a start place, and SMEs, as Courtney was pointing to, on who you need in the room to help you there. Without that and understanding what it can enable, how it can enable, what the risks are, how to leverage it for your business, it's going to be very hard to explore your own strategic plans. You want to be able to take a lens of your strategic plan and understand enough to say, here's how we start to layer that in. And it may alter it severely, or it might just be integration within the existing strategic plan. So for me, that's where it starts: executive education and alignment.
And I think for me too, I think the closing sentiment there is about integration and curiosity. Is about integrating the moving to AI into the things that we do already today. It's not this separate big beast thing that's off to the side that everybody is having shiny object syndrome. It's a tool to help us in our organization. And how is it going to do that? And how does that, like you said, Chantal, layer into our strategy? And how can we give our people an opportunity to take some of the fear away? And can we give them that sandbox? And can we let them play and get curious in this space so that when we do make that transition, it's not a big scary thing. It's something that we've been using forever, and we've figured out ways for it to help us.
I love the idea of creating that safe sandbox because it really lowers the barrier to entry for organization, de-risks, and encourages people to experiment. So thank you for sharing that. So this brings us to the end of the show today. And big thanks to Chantal and Courtney for sharing their expertise on navigating AI adoption. Today, we explored how businesses can prepare for AI by fostering adaptability, building people-centered strategies, and embedding ethical considerations from the start. And above all, be curious about this transformation that we are all embarking on. Chantal and Courtney reminded us that the real key to success isn't just technology, it's leadership, it's culture, it's preparation. So thank you both again for your time and insights.
Thank you, Shweta.
And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TIDES for more conversations that are shaping the future of enterprise strategy.